Farrik.
Welcome to Dank Farrik, a Star Wars podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Mendelson, along with my co-host,
Carlos Gomez.
and today we're here with our first guest of the show, Laura Kelly.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for being here.
So Laura, we just wanted to have you maybe introduce yourself, talk about your relevance to the Star Wars community, and the sort of things you do with your podcast and trivia and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great. My friend and I met doing Star Wars trivia, and so we decided, it was like the first sort of night that we met, we kind of like shut the bar down, just like talking about Star Wars in general, and it was really fun. So we like hung out a couple more times, and it was really her that was like, we really could we should do our own podcast. And I was like, no, there's too many Star Wars podcasts. We don't need to do another podcast. And she's like, yeah, no, we do. But then I started thinking about it, and I was just like, well, here's all the things I want to do. Here's all the things we could talk about. Here's how we could do something different. Here's how we can try and stand out. And yeah, Alice is really smart. She has a degree in engineering. I have a marketing journalism degree. So our skills sort of we're very compatible in terms of we have to learn how to edit audio, and we have to promote the show, and it was just sort of a match made in heaven. So she and I have been doing it for 2 years now. Our show is called Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, and the premise is basically that we drink wine and talk about Star Wars, and we always do trivia at the end of our show, since that's sort of an homage to just how we met. We always have to include that.
Right. That's awesome. And we also like to drink during our podcast, so feel free if you have anything. I'm
Love
just
it.
going to crack open a cold one right now.
Oh, I love it. No, I normally I'd be down to clown, but I've just got water. I was on that walk, and it wasn't even a long walk or a power walk or anything, and I'm exhausted. So I was like, I'm just gonna do water, I think, tonight.
I gotcha. Okay.
I totally support you though. Do your thing.
Totally. Okay, cool.
Great.
So we're basically in our beginning stages of this podcast. We're also in the same boat where we're there's so many Star Wars podcasts. Why should we start one? What is our relevance, and why do we matter to the Star Wars community? Why should we open up our voices and talk about this stuff? But when we were roommates in LA, all we would do is talk about Star Wars and just get into these super nerdy long conversations. And so we figured,
to an annoying degree, to every other roommate, it was like, oh god.
Oh, we drove them insane. Yeah. But we figured, if we do that already on our own, why not do this? And if people decide to listen, then we're all for it.
Annoy people in a massive scale.
Well, that's kind of the philosophy we had too, because we were like, we may not be the podcast for everyone, but we're the podcast for someone. Yeah. And I think if every content creator sort of approaches it like that, then and you just kind of go in with no expectations, you're gonna have fun anyway. So fuck it,
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. Just just do it for fun, and if people decide to listen, then cool. If they don't, then oh well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you guys met at a trivia competition. Now, what was your introduction to Star Wars, and what made you decide to start doing Star Wars trivia?
Sure. So my introduction to Star Wars was incredibly late in life. I didn't grow up with it, which is weird, but I kind of got into it in 2014, 2015. And it was sort of leading up to it was all the marketing of The Force Awakens. And what really drew me in was watching one of the trailers, where I was at a party or something, and I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving or what. I just remember football was the thing that was happening at the party, and the trailer came on, and it was that weird experience where suddenly everything in the room just melts away, and it's your only focus is what's happening on the screen, and it just sucked me in this really profound way. So at that point I had seen The Phantom Menace as a kid, but I'd never seen any other Star Wars films. And so I sat down and was like, okay, this is part of my general education in pop culture as a human being. I need to probably sit and watch these. And I just fell head over heels for it. And it really, that's what sort of led me to Star Wars Rebels, which I kind of think of as like my Star Wars, because that's my favorite Star Wars of all, is that show. And I think part of it is because the show is being made as I was like really finding my way into the fandom and
Right.
getting like really, really into it. And so it was really fun to get to like experience this new thing every week that no other Star Wars fan had experienced before, because, you know, so many people are coming from, you know, they were raised with the original trilogy or they were raised with the prequels and they know so much and love it all and have loved it their whole lives. It was kind of just nice to be among people who are also watching something new for the first time. So that's kind of what sucked me in and then what kept me in, you know.
Yeah.
Did you watch Rebels before Clone Wars?
I think I started watching Rebels and then I realized that I was missing something, because all the stuff, like when Ahsoka showed up at the end of season 1 of Rebels, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to know who this is. So
Reference.
I went back and watched all of the Clone Wars like fairly quickly. And then, you know, I was probably kind of watching them together because I still wanted to keep up with Rebels as much as I could. But yeah, that was kind of my intro. And I love the Clone Wars. And especially season 7, I thought was totally killer. But yeah, Rebels is one of those shows that'll just kind of like always stick with me. It'll always have a place in my heart. But at the same time, it's hard for me to watch because season 4 is very sad. So I haven't revisited it too much, honestly, since it aired.
Kanan's death. There's no.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is awesome though, because I don't really meet many people who, you know, their introduction especially is Rebels, and like Rebels seems to be an afterthought for a lot of people that I talk to. Like obviously the main trilogy is, you know, what people like to cling to, or maybe the prequels or whatever, but to, you know, to hear someone who obsesses over Rebels is really interesting. And I, you know, it's nice to hear that other pieces of the universe are deeply loved by others, and, you know, we get to talk about that, which I don't normally get to talk about.
So Ezra is basically like your Luke Skywalker, like for many.
Yeah, kind of. I was never a huge fan of Ezra. As much as I love Rebels, like Ezra was not the character that I really related to. Like I was watching that show for Kanan and Hera and the like will they won't they chemistry. So I was all about them. I love Chopper, but I wasn't as much in it for like Sabine and Ezra's part of the story, even though they were really the main part of the story, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it though. Hera was definitely my favorite, and I loved all the Ahsoka stuff just because I had obviously watched Clone Wars beforehand, and to see her as like this older, more experienced person who's going throughout the universe, and then once, you know, Vader comes on and you get to see them actually interact, that's definitely the coolest part for me.
Yeah, 100%.
We're getting, fingers crossed, Hera live action. It seems like maybe
that's the rumor. Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of excited about that, but I'm also kind of not, because I have this weird thing, and I know that I feel like I'm the only person that has this, where I really love Twi'leks in animated form. I am not a huge fan of live action Twi'leks. I just don't think it just doesn't work as well for me as it does in animation. So
Really?
like the way the way that they're like Leku move and stuff, I just hate it. It just doesn't feel right. And so I'm probably not looking forward to seeing a live action Hera as much as I could be. But it's also one of those things where like the voice is very important in that situation. Like I know a lot of people were sort of not crazy about the interpretation of Ahsoka that we got in live action, and that's kind of the anticipation that I'm going in with Hera, if that ends up being the case, is that like the voice is probably not going to be Vanessa Marshall if it's playing by a live action actress that's not Vanessa Marshall. But I'm kind of hoping that it will be. But it's going to be taking place, that they kept saying that it's going to take place in the future, which made me think it was like a very distant future where none of the characters that we know would be able to show up. But, you know, we don't know enough yet, so who knows?
Yeah, it's probably going to be adjacent to the Mandalorian timeline, I would assume. But also, the thing I'm excited about is what's up with Jason Syndulla? Like, is he going off to the academy? Was he around when the whole thing went down with the Ben?
Yeah, I know. I'm curious about the same thing too. I need to know what happened to him, and I need to know that he is safe and okay somewhere.
I'm mainly concerned about Grogu's.
Yeah.
But exactly. Disney would not kill him off.
Yeah, let's hope not.
He'll survive two Jedi massacres.
Yeah.
So how, as like a personal fan of Schmodown and like, you know, just Star Wars trivia in general, I've always, you know, watched these things and I'm like, I'm answering all the questions left and right. And just as like a casual fan, I just wonder like, how does one get to be on something like that? Like, can you explain like the process of like what it was like for your introduction?
I mean, for trivia in general, it kind of started for me at Star Wars Celebration in 2017. That was like the first fan convention I'd ever been to in my life. And it was before they did like the lottery systems at Star Wars Celebration for the big panels. And so I was like camping out for the 2 nights that I was there, or 3 nights, I don't remember. But I was like, you know, hanging out with this group of people for like 9 hours. And eventually, you know, you kind of have to find something new to pass the time. And so a lot of people were like whipping out Trivial Pursuit. And we were just kind of killing time doing that. And like at one point, one of the guys made a comment and he's just like, "You said you're like a new fan of Star Wars?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're like weirdly good at this." So that was kind of where it started. I started doing like pub trivias around Chicago. I met Alice. And then we incorporated it into our show. And right before we were about to launch our show, Christian Harloff tweeted about how there was going to be a trivia competition happening at Star Wars Celebration 2019. And I basically replied and was just like, "Hey, can I get in, or can me and my co-host get in on this? We have a podcast, we do trivia. We like go all around the city and do trivia. Like, I think we could like be really, I think we'd have a lot of fun doing this." And he messaged me back and he was like, "Hey, I only have one spot. So if you want to talk amongst yourselves and let me know which one of you wants to do it, you guys can totally have a spot." And that was the like fatal 5-way at Celebration 2019. And Alice was, yeah, kind of surprised that I even like let her have the option of maybe doing it. She always says that, and I always think it's so funny. But I was really excited to do it. So I kind of thought it was just going to be like a one-time thing. I really, like, I came in third and I played well. I was happy with how it went. But I did not anticipate that it was going to be this like continuous thing for me. I kind of thought it would be like a one and done. And then I got invited to go out to LA and shoot another match against Demolanta in October that year. And it was, it was fun. And so it's just kind of built from that. It was just kind of a weird chance meeting, you know?
Yeah.
You see, us as the fans, we always watch those shows and we're like answering left and right. And we're like, how did they not know that? But once you're in there in the front of the cameras and the lights in the studio, like maybe you can talk to that. Maybe you probably saw the show before you participated in it. What's the difference in the pressure of and I don't think you can read them, can you, when you're there?
No, you have to rely on the audio only, unfortunately. But the studio, being in the studio was by far, I think, like one of the scariest experiences of my life. It was absolutely terrifying being under the lights and just like I was a total fish out of water in that world. And that was when we were like, they were shooting at the Collider studio. So there was like, I mean, it was just crazy intimidating. And it would be a lot better now, I think, if I went, because I have so many more friends in that community that like just tend to show up to random tapings. Like I would just know a lot more people and be a lot more comfortable. But even like sitting at home when we had to switch to, you know, when the Schmodown had to convert to being all digital matches at the beginning of last year, like it's amazing how scary it is just sitting here in my own bedroom trying to play these games. I mean, like my first couple of games, I was like holding my marker and I was like shaking because I was so nervous. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, why do I feel this nervous? This is like the most comfortable that I should be. But yeah, it's been quite an experience I've played live, I've played in studio, I've played from home. I've kind of gotten the full experience at this point.
Yeah. And like your competition is just so insane, you know? You have to be so meticulous at this that it's like it's literally an art to like really retain this sort of knowledge. Like some of the questions they ask are just insane. Like what is your studying process like?
It's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of, you know, watching movies with captions on, and it's spending a lot of time flipping through Wikipedia, and anytime you see like a link for something, you just go down rabbit holes. It's a lot of that, you know, and everybody sort of has their own process.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's one of those things where it's so much repetition. For me, and it's worked really well. The studying process and the, like, kind of the secret weapons that I have served me really well since the beginning. So I kind of just keep building my study guides, and they just kind of keep getting bigger and bigger, which makes it harder to memorize all of it. But if I can do that repetition, then I can still find ways to be successful in it. So I've been really happy with how it's gone.
Good.
In that repetition, well, I love ice cream, but I wouldn't eat it 7 times a day. In that repetition, do you sometimes get sick of Star Wars and I'm like, oh my god, and then again?
100%, 100%. Like I mean, I'll have to, like, after I finish a match, I'm always like, I need to find some movie to watch that is just like the antithesis of Star Wars. And so, like, there was, I think the last match that I lost, which was against Ace last year. I think we, like, or my sister, I live with my sister, and we ordered pizza and turned on Bridesmaids, and we just watched Bridesmaids that night. And I was just like, I just needed something to totally distract me. But I definitely soak up the off season. Like, I really should be, like, staying on top of my stuff better than I am. But a lot of times my study process always has, like, it's two pronged, right? Like, it's the weeks leading up to the match where I'm spending X amount of days on every movie, and then it comes down to it, and, like, the cram session is also extremely important to my process. So I'll, like, spend like 3 days doing like 3 movies a day, trying to make sure that I'm really getting down the stuff that I'm may not be as solid on. So yeah, it's two-pronged, and it's a ton of work. It's so much work. But it is really, really fun and really rewarding and so thrilling. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
Do you ever, like, go into a match and there's definitely, like, things that but just because you're just thrust into this position where you literally have, like, X amount of time to answer a question, and you feel all these nerves, and you're feeling this competition, and it's neck and neck. Do you ever just get, like, stumped on things that and you're just kicking yourself afterward, like, so frustrated that you just couldn't pull it out of thin air?
I'm lucky in that I really haven't had that happen too much. I mean, like, last year I only missed one question out of the 2 matches I played, and it was Anakin's age, which I knew.
Yep, I remember. Yep, I was shocked that you didn't get it.
I know, and I should have known it, but it was one of, like, I did know it, but I wasn't certain. Like, I had written down 9, and then I erased it and wrote 10 because I'm just an idiot. And now I know, like, I need to go with my first instinct on things, and that lesson has paid off in a couple of ways since then. But yeah, I haven't encountered it much where it's just something I know that I know and I just couldn't pull it. Anything that I've missed is because I legitimately did not know it. The exception might be, like, when I played Alex Damon at Spectacular in the speed round, which I'm like, my brain just didn't work fast enough, and if I answered a question wrong, it was because I just didn't get enough time to think about it. So yeah,
I couldn't even imagine, like, just this level of competition where you just know that there's no margin for error. You miss one question and that could cost you the game. So that just has to be, like, constantly in the back of your mind, where you just feel this constant pressure to be literally perfect. So it's just really impressive how you're able to just constantly, consistently play at this level. Like, your last match, you didn't miss a single question, right?
I did not. No.
Yeah, it's just it's so impressive to me. So just know that there's people who watch this stuff. I actually watch Schmodown with my mom. My mom is obsessed.
Oh, cool.
And she doesn't watch Star Wars at all, but she just loves watching these competitions with me, and it's just become this thing that we bond over. So you
That's
have
amazing.
so many fans out there who are just these random people who appreciate how much you spend studying and, like, really perfecting this craft.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I love that you and your mom bond over the Schmodown.
Yeah.
That's so freaking cool.
Never did I think this would happen, but
is she like a cinephile? Like, is she really into movies in general?
Like, all.
Oh my god.
She's really into, like, the whole drama side that you guys, have these little, like, sparring matches with each other and the dialogue. And she just loves, like, she could tell how difficult the questions are. So she just sees, like, this level of excellence that you guys are performing at. So she's really into it, and she knows I'm into it. She likes watching me answer the questions. She's like, why aren't you on Schmodown? You need to get on there, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh, I don't know anybody on Schmodown. I don't know how to get on.
Well, this year they started the audition stuff, so that's the process, I think, going forward at least. Because I don't really know how it happened, but how people got into it before. I only kind of know how I did, but the audition stuff that they're doing now, where you can really put yourself out there, and at least if you don't somehow end up in the draft, like maybe you can end up in, like, now they have like the sort of minor league that's like the first class league or something. And I'm really looking forward to watching those, because I have a feeling it might end up being the same situation that we had with like Adam Collins last year, where there's going to be some really talented people that come out of that I don't know if they are allowed to end up in free agency at some point, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I definitely have to try out for that at some point.
Yeah. Keep an eye on it for like next year, like around, because what was it? It was probably like November or December that they were taking in the audition tapes and stuff. So keep an eye out.
All right, I will.
Or the fans, you can do is just tweet Harloff all in mass.
I'll just blow up his Twitter.
There you go.
So a little bit more into like the Star Wars fandom stuff. What, out of like the episodic films and maybe like Rogue One and Solo, what is your favorite film and why?
My favorite Star Wars film is Rogue One. And there's a couple of reasons, I think. Number one, I like the sort of darker, grittier Star Wars. I tend to enjoy those a little bit more, like the more sort of adult feeling things, which is weird because I also love Rebels, which is in its defense a fairly dark show, especially towards the end, for a show that's supposed to be for kids. But I love Rogue One, and I think the other reason is because that was the first movie that I went to like an opening night premiere with like 10 of my friends, and we got to experience that opening night energy, and that experience just kind of stuck with me. So I think that's a big reason too.
I totally feel that. I did, while I was at Emerson, that film came out, and I did a Star Wars trivia contest that was being hosted at my school. There was a girl who went to my college who was interning at Lucasfilm. And she got early tickets to the IMAX premiere a day in advance. So the winners got that. So I was able to go see it in IMAX the day before. And for me, just that end scene with Vader in the hallway, like I literally jumped out of my seat, and I've never had that reaction in any other film in my life. So it was just such an incredible experience, and I'll never forget it. So I totally understand.
I love that scene too. And it was really unfortunate because I kind of learned a lot of valuable lessons with the marketing of that film, and that I didn't like any spoiler that ever came out. I was on it. I needed to know everything as much as I could. And I think it sort of ruined the experience in a couple of like little ways. Like I knew that Leia was going to show up at the end. That leaked like 2 or 3 days before the movie came out, and so I was a little bit annoyed that I like knew that, because that would have been really cool to really go into that without that knowledge. But the Vader scene, I had no idea that was coming, and that I totally agree. I was in the same boat where I would like jaw on the floor. Like I could not believe what I was watching. It was so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I remember episode 7 and I think 9 as well got leaked, like pretty much like a whole plot outline was leaked pretty early on. And everyone was like, no, it's not going to be like that. And then it happened, and it was everything. The thing about Rogue One, though, is you can watch all the trailers you want, but like half of it isn't in the movie.
I know, right? Like there's one trailer in particular, I think, where there isn't a single scene in the trailer that ended up in the final cut of the film, which is hilarious.
In one of them,
Other than Rogue One, so like you don't have to give an exact rank order, but like what are more of like your favorite Star Wars films, and what are more of your like your I don't know, they're more towards the bottom of the list.
You know, the post-Disney buyout films tend to be more my favorite, I think. Like The Last Jedi is my favorite of all the saga films. And it was a movie that, I saw opening night. I had this sort of same experience where I got to go see it opening night with a bunch of friends. You got that sort of energy, and it was really fun. But I remember leaving the theater and just being like, I cannot decide how I feel about this movie. Like I am confused. And so I went and saw it. I think I had tickets to see it like maybe 2 more times that weekend, but I went and saw it the next day or that weekend after. And I remember thinking, like, I'm pretty sure I just watched a totally different movie. Like, I enjoyed it so much more the second time. I was able to like really kind of like sit and enjoy, like sit with all of the lessons that you kind of get in that movie.
Yeah.
That's my favorite version of Luke Skywalker is in The Last Jedi. I love the Yoda scene with him. The first time I watched the Yoda scene, I was just like, oh my God, we're shoving Yoda into this movie. But then the second time I watched it, like now, like that Yoda quote, like that, we are what they grow beyond is my favorite quote in all of Star Wars. So yeah, I love that movie, but the post Disney buyout stuff, I love The Force Awakens. I love Solo. Solo is one of those movies that I kind of think of as like my Star Wars comfort movie.
Yeah.
Like if I just need to turn something on and I just want it, like if I even just need to like sit and fall asleep to something, like that's usually the one that I turn to just because it just has all of those warm Star Wars feels.
It's like lower engagement. You can watch it without worrying about the whole 9 epic opera.
Exactly.
I also completely agree with the Last Jedi sentiment. That movie really hit it home for me. That they really had the guts to do something interesting with it.
I know. Yeah, it's so different. It's such a different Star Wars movie, and I really appreciated the risks that movie took. I thought it was great. And I know that it's a controversial, it's a divisive film. I totally understand that. And I kind of get why people are kind of anti sequel trilogy in the first place, because when it comes to like the Legends stuff, if that was your canon, even though like wasn't really official part, but if that's what like you grew up with during the dark times in the 90s when there was no Star Wars, and then all of a sudden somebody tells you like, oh no, this is stricken from the record.
Yeah.
Like if somebody did that with Star Wars Rebels, they were just like, hey, that's not part of the canon anymore. I know it's your favorite, but like, fuck you. I would be really upset about that. So I totally understand where people are coming from with that. But it is unfortunate that I think that so many people like are still leaning on that far enough that they can't enjoy the sequel trilogy, because they're like The Force Awakens is a fucking good movie. You know, that's probably up there in my top 5 as well. And I love Return of the Jedi. That's my favorite original trilogy movie. And
I think there's a lot to love in the sequels. The thing for me that kind of keeps me like from loving them is that I don't think they stuck the landing.
Oh God, no.
That's not. Where
it's not even just Rise of Skywalker. Like obviously I think that's the weakest of the trilogy, but I just, not even just like going off of like The Last Jedi being like vastly different. I think just having 2 different directors with 2 completely different visions, not having a set story from the beginning of the trilogy really made it feel subpar. Like it started so strong, I felt, especially, when I first saw Force Awakens. I saw it like 5 times in theaters, like more than any other film ever. But just it felt like they were constantly going back and forth with what they wanted to do, so there was no real vision, and it just felt like, I don't know, like I felt like Disney didn't care enough to lay this groundwork to make sure that there was, set up. And it, like you could criticize the prequels or whatever, but at least George had this specific vision that he carried out throughout the entire thing. So it just like that just gnaws at the back of my mind when I watch the sequels. I just know that like these things weren't in place. Palpatine was never supposed to come back apparently, and all these different changes happened, and everything is just contradicting itself. But there are little gems within that. I'm not a huge fan of The Last Jedi, but there's little snippets, like you were saying, the Yoda scene. I really enjoy that. And there's little moments within these films that I do.
The Luke and Leia scene. The Luke and Leia scene is perfection.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it really is.
John
and
Williams.
I actually have that same thing with The Rise of Skywalker. Like it's not, I've watched it now many times, and it's kind of crazy how you can like kind of Stockholm syndrome yourself into liking something. Like I've watched it enough that I'm like, I don't dislike it as much as I did.
Yeah.
I still really enjoy making fun of it, especially like on Twitter. And I love when I see other people, because it's just an easy target,
Absolutely.
But it has these little moments in it that I really, really love. Like I love all of the Kylo Ren, Ben Solo stuff in The The Rise of Skywalker. I think it's fantastic. I think they did a really good job of bringing Carrie Fisher into it in like a really respectful way. I loved the Han Solo appearance in that. And one of the funniest things that happened when I went and saw that movie in theaters, like the second or third time, I was with like a bunch of my cousins, and one of them got up to go to the bathroom literally right before Han Solo came on screen. And I literally I was like, no, like this slow motion thing. I was like, you're gonna miss the best part of this movie. But yeah, and the Palpatine stuff, like I remember being really excited and when I saw the trailer. I was at Celebration, I was in the arena. It was like, you got that energy, and I thought it was so fun. But at the end of the day, the Rey Palpatine thing is just absolutely abhorrent to me that they
did you want her to just be nobody?
Yeah
Much better.
100%.
I think that would definitely be better than just being a Palpatine. Like I feel like they just threw that in because they needed a bad guy because Snoke was killed off, you know. It felt like JJ wanted to undo everything Rian Johnson did, and like, you know, even if people didn't really well receive The Last Jedi, like it was, you know, divided, some people loved it, some people hated it, like you have to continue what has been laid for you, you know, to contradict everything. Just it took up half the film trying to undo that, it felt like.
Yeah.
And the Palpatine stuff just felt like thrown in, and it just ruined it for me. But there was still small hidden gems, like you were saying, the Leia stuff and the Ben Solo and the Han moment. Like I really enjoyed that stuff. And you know, the heart of it is still there. It just there's so much that takes away from it. It just makes me like regret like so many decisions they made.
And not to grind on that film too long, although we should. If you read like the novelization and all the supplementary material, you realize that movie is like half the movie it should have been, because you notice there's a bunch of scenes, like the whole thing with the Oracle and Mustafar, and like the whole idea, the two Sith wayfind, like a bunch of the ideas were so developed. A lot of Leia scenes also fell to the wayside because of Carrie Fisher's death.
Yeah, the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker is absolutely beautiful. Yeah. It's so good. And the Leia and Luke stuff in it, I think, is one of my favorite components of it. And then the fact that they're like, and there's even concept art of this scene, but they cut out like a Chewbacca Kylo Ren moment when Chewbacca's on the Steadfast. And that's one of those things that I just can never forgive, because I feel like they shot it maybe. I don't know that for sure, but I kind of get the feeling that they did, and then they cut it out, but they did leave it in the novelization, and it's very good.
Jonah, I don't know how you pronounce Chewie's actor's name. Jonah Suotamo?
Eunice? Yeah, Eunice Suotamo.
That guy. He said it like the other day, he tweeted about it, about that scene they actually did shoot.
Really?
And, yeah, it got cut.
Oh, gotcha.
And I like the idea that he looked into his head and he saw little Ben playing with Uncle Chewie. That would have been such a good little bridge moment towards the redemption of, well, you know.
Well, and there's like another scene later in the novelization with Lando that's sort of similar to that vibe that I also really loved. And like, you couldn't have left like one of them in, like,
right.
You had to cut both of those moments. Like, God damn. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm like, I don't need to harp on the movie too long, but I will say it's just an easy target, and it's fun to make fun of it.
Yeah.
Now, with your love of like Rebels and maybe the Clone Wars too, like how do you feel about the prequels?
You know, I've kind of come to enjoy the prequels and what they have to offer. And a lot of it is because my co-host on my show, Alice, she's a prequel enthusiast. That is her favorite Star Wars of all the Star Wars films. Her favorite film is Attack of the Clones. Like, she's an oddball. Love her to death, but that's a weird thing. But having been friends with her for as long as I have now, and kind of like, I've sort of spent a lot of time hearing her like defend the prequels, and pointing out all of the things that they did really well. Yeah. And when you think about how like the technology that was like pioneered in those movies, like pushed the film industry so far in terms of what they could do with visual effects, like those movies deserve a lot more, I think, you know, positivity than they get, because they really were like revolutionary. And there are story components that I really like in the prequels. It's the main thing that I really don't like, and it might be like the biggest thing for most people, I think, is the dialogue.
100% agree.
Like George Lucas couldn't write dialogue, and if he had gotten somebody to help him with that, the whole trilogy would have been, I think, so much better received.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if you can look past that and look at, and try and appreciate the story and the sound design and the visual effects, like there is a lot of good stuff there. So I've really come to appreciate them for all the good that is there. But yeah, when you're talking about easy targets and fun to make fun of, the prequels, especially Attack of the Clones, they're easy marks too.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's definitely my major complaint with them. And I think it's crazy to me that George wrote the original Star Wars, A New Hope, and the dialogue seems like really good and snappy and witty, but the prequels, it's just like with the whole relationship aspect and everything with Padme and Anakin, it just felt like he can't relay emotion. He doesn't know how to express emotion in his dialogue, and he's just so like literal with it.
I feel like
it just comes.
Marsha Lucas probably helped a lot with the dialogue in the original.
Yeah, 100%.
Cut that. Nope, we don't need that.
Well, and I know like Carrie Fisher rewrote a lot of her own lines, and I know that Marsha Lucas was an incredibly talented editor, and I'm sure she took out a bunch of the mumbo jumbo. So yeah, exactly. So I think there was a lot of play there, but it was unfortunate, that he didn't have her to help on the prequels, because I think they probably suffered as a result of that.
Yeah. But I still love them for what they are. We just finished our Revenge of the Sith episode, because we're going through all the films and like discussing them.
Nice.
From the order they were released, and just talking about Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite films in all of Star Wars. Definitely my favorite of the prequel trilogy, and just like how many like important implications for like all of what happens in that film is so important to what happens in all of Star Wars. Is just really cool to like see that happen on screen. And even with all like the weird like dialogue and stuff, it's so like memorable, and all the memes come from it spawns from the prequel trilogy. So it just makes it so much more enjoyable in that sense to like laugh at it and like enjoy it in that way. But I my favorite film is obviously Empire Strikes Back, but I grew up originally with the original trilogy, and then went into the prequels as I was seeing them in theaters. But Carlos was the opposite. He saw the prequels first, so it's interesting to see like how we counter with what our thought process is. And same thing with like you came in with Rebels and the sequel trilogy, to see how we like think in terms of why we enjoy these films. And for me, a lot of like the things I dislike about the sequel trilogy is like how defensive I am of the story, because it's what was already laid before me and what I grew up with. I think that's the biggest part, is like the story that I grew up with, I'm so defensive over.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have that. So it's really interesting to see this like counter, thing happen.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I also don't have the sort of baggage of like having never seen the not special editions. Like I've only ever seen the special editions.
Mm-hmm.
So
me too.
When people are like arguing about like if Han shot first and whether or not it was really an improvement to add the little bits and pieces that were added to the special editions, I'm just like, I have nothing to contribute to that. I don't care. I just, like I have my versions of the movie, and that's what I watch. And
the canon versions.
Yeah, exactly.
As for me, it's Return of the Jedi. You can't beat that ending. It's like the ultimate emotional catharsis. Like,
well, Carlos, you hate the Vader no scream now. That's like the one edit.
That's one thing that I thought was tacked on. But that was like to 2011 when they added that. So that was after, like, that was before you started watching Star Wars. So you probably were like, oh yeah, he says no. But I'm like, no, he doesn't. He shouldn't.
Just the emotion of seeing Vader like looking back and forth between the Emperor and Luke as he's being, torched alive. Just to see like that thought process without having to have him like vocally react, scream no. Like it just felt better that way. But that's
so. Wait a minute. In the original scene, he doesn't say anything.
He doesn't
He's
say
just
anything.
back and forth.
And it's amazing because it's like a silent redemption.
The music and the emotion from his
it's just this
visuals, just how he's moving.
And you can basically read his mind. because you're like looking back and forth, and then he picks him up, and that's so great. And now he's, because it wasn't clear enough, I guess he has to say no.
And I'm pretty sure
so
the no they
great.
used,
I
I'm
know.
pretty sure the no they used was the same audio from the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to like imagine what that would be like, and it's playing so awkwardly in my head. Like it just seems too quiet.
I think you
so
can
that's
find
really
it on
funny.
YouTube. I think it's on
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you can
YouTube,
definitely.
Yeah.
That was
I
like
might
in
have
the
to look that
DVD.
up. That's funny.
Yeah. So do you read any of the novels? Obviously you read Rise of Skywalker, but like do you read any of like the expanded universe or any of the newer content outside of the episodic films? And do you play any of the video games?
I'm not a gamer, so I have not. I've tried to play Battlefront. I'm legitimately terrible at it, and I have no desire to ever try and get better. I do read the canon novels. I have not read all of them, but I've read most of them. I'm really enjoying the High Republic. I think it's an amazing new start to the story. All of these new books that are coming out, and just recently finished Into the Dark, so I'm really excited just to see what's next. But yeah, I love the canon novels. Lost Stars is probably one of my favorites. It's top 3. Dark Disciple might be my number 1
so good.
favorite. It's so good. And then I really enjoyed A New Dawn just because it was that Rebels connection. But I remember reading the first novel I ever read was the Ahsoka novel, and I remember thinking it felt like fan fiction because it was like I just had never experienced Star Wars in written form.
Right.
I was so used to it being so visual, so it just felt weird. But I've gone back and reread that book like after I've read all other books, and I enjoyed it a lot more upon a reread. I think it's always maybe that first book is always just a little bit awkward, or at least that was my experience.
I mean, it's definitely jarring to go from like a visual Star Wars to like reading descriptions of the world and the characters and everything. So I totally get that.
The great thing, I'm glad you brought out Dark Disciple, because that was based on the scripts for the unproduced Clone Wars episodes. I wouldn't care to admit how much the ending of that book moved me. Probably more than anything in Star Wars, because it's such a brutal, emotional.
It was. I was in like a public place when I was reading that. Like I was at Second City because I was supposed to see a show that my friend was in, and I was at the Starbucks that's like connected to Second City, like a huge Starbucks that's down there, and I was like I was sitting in public next to like a bunch of dudes who were like playing chess and speaking. I'm pretty sure they were Polish. They were speaking some other language, and I was just like trying to like keep it together and not cry reading the end of that book. So it is devastating. It's such a like an emotional blow, but it's so good.
So good. For me, the Mount Rushmore, like Charles Soule and Claudia Gray.
Yeah,
they're like deities in the Star Wars canon.
100%.
As far as I'm concerned. The output, and even I love the idea. I want to see. I don't know if Claudia Gray writes comics, but I would love to see her writing some comics, because I know Charles Soule does. That would be really cool.
Yeah, she's amazingly talented. So I'm excited that she's part of the High Republic stuff too. But yeah, in terms of novelizations, that was sort of a new thing I just recently got into, where I read the novelizations of the sequel trilogy, and I got a lot out of it. I was sort of surprised how much I enjoyed them, especially Rise of Skywalker. That one, the fact that book blew me away in the way that it did is like so shocking to me. But it's just, Ray Carson's a crazy good writer. She wrote a story in From a Certain Point of View for A New Hope, and it was called The Red One. It was all about R5D4.
Yeah.
And it is like the most emotional gut punch about a totally nothing character from that movie. It's insane how good of a writer she is and how she can really pull that emotion out. I hope she does more writing in Star Wars.
Totally agree. So I see you're wearing a little Rebel hoodie thing. Fleece.
Yeah. I got this, like, I think this is actually a dude's jacket, but it has really long arms and I'm very tall, so I need long sleeves. Yeah.
What kind of Star Wars memorabilia or merchandise do you have? Do you have any kind of like crazy collections?
No, I'm not a collector, unfortunately. No. So I try to keep things as clutter free and minimal as I can. I have a lot of books. It is a lot of visual guides and stuff like that around this apartment. And I have a lot of artwork that I've bought at various conventions. Most of it's not even hung or framed, but a lot of it is. So I have a couple of Funkos. It's a lot of t-shirts.
Wow.
And a lot of tank tops because I'm a very sweaty person usually. So I like to go with the tank tops. But yeah, I've got little kind of trinkets here and there, but it's not, there's nothing in excess by any means except maybe books.
Yeah, for me it's just coffee mugs and t-shirts.
Nice. Yeah. Keeping it simple, you know?
Yep.
I painted this and I'm very proud of it.
Oh, it's awesome. I love it.
So I have like a Google picture.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Carlos, it's kind of surprising you have that because like you really don't seem to care much for Boba Fett, but I'm like the one who's obsessed with him.
It's very easy because the lines, it was like, it was a very easy entry course picture. Yeah, but
That's awesome.
I mean, Boba is cool now that he's in the Mandalorian and he wants his armor back.
He redeemed himself as far as like what he actually does on screen.
He really did.
Like Laura, I'm literally obsessed with Boba Fett. I got this back in 2013 in Japan.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Wow. Is that your only tattoo? Do you have other Star Wars tattoos?
No, that's my only Star Wars tattoo.
Okay.
Hopefully
that's awesome.
I'll make more, but that was
I've thought about like, have you ever been to Celebration? Have you ever thought about getting
I have
there?
not, and me and Carlos are dying to go. So we're definitely going to go in the future once the virus dies down or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. The fact that they have an entire like section of the exhibit floor devoted just to tattoo artists so people can get tattoos.
Yes.
It's so freaking funny to me. And I don't know if I would ever do it. If I did, it would be something really small, but I love that it's there.
Yeah.
So wait, so you've been to Celebration for the last couple of years every year?
Twice. I've been to, they only do it every other year. So I went to 2017, 2019. I went to Comic-Con in 2018. That was really fun. And there's a convention here in Chicago called C2E2. And I've been to that a couple of times, and that's always really fun. There's not usually a ton of Star Wars stuff there. There's usually just something books related, but yeah, inevitably I walk away with a bunch of art that I'm never going to hang, and it just lives in a drawer.
So you were there when they brought out Ian McDermott for the Roll It Again or whatever.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
That was like,
what a thrill.
Yeah, brought the roof down, I assume.
It's like, regardless of if you think that he, should have come back in Rise of Skywalker, like he's such a good actor and he's so perfect for that role. He's so iconic, and the lines that he says and how he reads them is so like you want to like quote him so often. Carlos was actually him for Halloween while we were in LA, and it was hilarious.
Nice. You did a pretty good voice there just now. Like that was pretty epic. So yeah, I support it. That's awesome.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we can go into the trivia portion of this little interview and see, maybe hopefully I can stump you a little bit. Is it cool is it like, do you study for movies only, or can I put in some Clone Wars and Rebels?
I mean, you're welcome to. I probably won't get them right because I rarely revisit the animated stuff. I only ever study movies.
Okay, fair enough. I'll stick to the movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, feel free to branch out if you want. It's totally up to you. If you've got like a really killer question that you're really proud of, like fire away.
Fair enough. Okay. First one. What is the collective noun for porg?
Oh, you mean like multiple?
Like a group, like
a group of porgs.
A murder.
Oh wow!
Like crows.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Crows, yep.
All right, great. This is one for one of the spin-offs. What is the name of Han Solo's street racer pal who crashed and died attempting a maneuver that Han was later able to pull off during the Kessel Run?
Needles. From Back to the Future.
Yeah, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know that whole thing?
Was it really?
Yeah, he played Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers played Needles in Back to the Future 3, I think. Well, in all of them.
I had no idea. Good to know.
Yeah. What was Biggs Darklighter's call sign during the Battle of Yavin?
He would be Red 3.
Oh, there you go.
I said it too.
Nice.
All right. Okay, so finish this phrase. The Republic is not what it once was. The Senate is full of blank delegates.
You don't have multiple choice in front of you by chance, do you?
I don't. I can give you a clue. It's 2 words.
Okay. Can you read it for me one more time?
The Republic is not. I'll do the impression maybe. No, the Republic is not what it once was. The Senate is full of blank delegates.
I feel like one of the words is squabbling, but I can't pull the other one.
One of them is squabbling. Yeah.
Okay.
It's full of greedy, squabbling delegates.
Greedy. Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice. Is that Palpatine in
Phantom Menace?
1?
Yeah.
Phantom Menace, yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
That's a good one. Well done.
I didn't know the quote.
All right. In Revenge of the Sith, where was it said Master Boss Sorry. Let me try again. In Revenge of the Sith, where was it said Master Boss is moving his troops into?
Boz Pity.
Yep. There you go. When the Jedi go to arrest Palpatine, who was the first Jedi to be killed in the ensuing battle?
I think it was Agent Kolar, right?
Oh my God, how do you know that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know the whole Agent Kolar thing is he was supposed to be It Koth, but they couldn't find the actor, so they just made him up with they could find the actor who was in Australia, or they were in a different part of the. He wasn't like lost or something. But
he was missing.
So they made him up to be It Koth, but the new actor looked too different, so they were like, just make another Jedi.
That's awesome. I had no idea. That's really funny.
Yeah, that's why they look so similar. Okay, I'll do one of the animation stuff to see if you can get it. What is the name of Chancellor Valorum's personal aide that accompanied Master Jedi Sifo Dyas on a mission to Obadiah?
Ooh. Yeah, I would never be able to pull that one. I think I only saw that episode once.
Oh, okay, fair enough. What about Rebels? Have you seen Rebels more than once?
Some episodes, not all of them.
You probably know this then. Well, maybe. What is the name of Hondo Onaka's Ugnaught friend with whom he shares many misadventures with in Star Wars Rebels?
Oh, let me think. I should be able to hear it in my head.
You can hear the pig squealing.
Hondo just has like such a great like cadence the way he speaks.
That Ugnaught died, right?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
That's a yes.
Yeah, you stumped me. I haven't watched it enough to know.
Fair enough. Melsh.
Okay. Weird. It's pretty close to Melshi from Rogue One.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so one last one from the movies.
Okay.
What is the name of the language we see Rey speaking in... Sorry, this is badly written. What is the name of the language we see Rey first speak in The Force Awakens?
I didn't know it had a name. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm guessing it's not Huttese, but that's the only thing I would know to guess.
Nope. Tito speak.
Oh, that's funny.
Tito.
So before we started this interview, Carlos asked me this question, and I was like, "What? Like, I know the character's Tito," and he's like, "Actually, his species is Tito, and there's like a bunch of him, and that's just like their language, Tito speak."
That's funny. I knew that the species was also called Tito, but I did not know the language. That's good. That's a good one.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
I got you a couple times.
Fully prepared for Schmoedown now.
But I can't believe you get Agent Kolar though. That must have been I don't know, some.
I can. Have you seen the question she answers? Like, it's insane.
A little bit, yeah. It's crazy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That was fun. I liked it. Yeah, trivia is always fun.
Always.
So
we're basically ready to wrap it up. If you have any final thoughts, we'd love to hear them. And we're super grateful to have you on. You've been a blast, and I was shocked to have seen you just appear in this Trivia Nation match, and obviously you smoked everybody, and I came in fourth all pissed off, but I'm so grateful that you answered me and decided to come on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad that I normally don't keep the chat up at all in those events. So I'm glad that I just happened to have it up that day. But yeah, so earlier that day, because I've played a lot of Trivia Nation Star Wars trivia, I wanted to try and plan like an event for my company, for my day job. And so we ended up using them to host like a sort of themed trivia that was kind of themed around like our company, like our specifically, they kind of asked questions about us. And it was really, really fun. And it just happened to be earlier that day with the same host that we had. So it was really a fun coincidence. But yeah, he was like, I think my boss said something to him like, she's going to be in the Star Wars trivia tonight. And he's like, oh, okay. Have you played with us before? And I was like, oh God, yeah. And he's like, how do you think you'll do it? I was like, oh, I'm going to win. Like cause I'm like, at that point, I'm totally up to speed on like all my Schmodown study material. And I was just like, no, this is mine. I got this.
And for most of the questions, you're getting multiple choice. So, I mean, that's just, a steal basically for you.
Yeah, and because I've played with them so much, I kind of get it used to be that every answer had this speed thing attributed to it where they all counted down. Yeah. And so I'm glad they don't do it for all of them anymore, but I've gotten really good at that part of it too. So yeah, so that was it was super fun. I have enjoyed their trivias because they do write really good questions.
Yeah.
Most of them are fairly easy, and the fact that they're multiple choice, makes it a lot easier, but every once in a while they'll throw like a really weird one in there.
Yeah, and this last one I was actually really impressed because the first couple that I did, it felt a lot easier, and this last one there was a couple that stumped me, so I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. Backup dancers. Size Noodles backup dancers, how many?
I said there was 2 and there was 3. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think they brought in like a new writer recently. So she's been really killing it. So I've enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like other stuff I have going on, my show Force Toast, a Star Wars Happy Hour, has new episodes every other Tuesday. And then I host a show on John Roca's channel, The Outlaw Nation. I host a show with him called The Jedi Way, where we normally find like a sort of big picture Star Wars topic, and we talk about that for 45 minutes. And that's every other Wednesday. And then this coming Saturday, I'm going to be in Blue Bantha Milk Company's Solo 2 written by AI. I'm very excited about that. We were actually supposed to do it a couple weeks ago, but one of the leads had a family emergency and we had to reschedule. So that's happening Saturday, March 13th at 5 p.m. Central. And I'll be playing the roles of Kira and Bib Fortuna.
Wow. What a difference.
Exactly. Yep. It's going to be classic pairing. So I'm very excited.
It's a two-hander, right? Between the two of them. That's a new romantic lead, is Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, thank God they actually don't have any scenes together, because that has happened within their other productions before, where just one actor is talking to themselves. But yeah, no, I get to keep them separate, thank God.
Do you figure out the voice for it? Or
can we hear your best Bib Fortuna voice?
I have not spent near enough time practicing. I love that like Day Wanawanga line that he has. But it's so annoying because like I can't talk in like Huttese or fake Huttese, whatever my interpretation of it, because it's live and there won't be captions.
Right.
So I have to speak in English, which I'm like a little bit bummed about, but it's fine.
Can't even picture. I can barely picture Bib Fortuna speaking English.
Right?
Know?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be weird.
We'll be thrown off, but I'm sure you'll do great.
Thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
So we will definitely blast your stuff out. Thank you so much for coming on and, being our first guest. We really appreciate it. And, we're just so grateful for having you here. You've been a blast.
Thank you so much, you guys. The honor's all mine. This is great. And I'm so glad that we had that chance meeting at Trivia Nation, because this has been awesome. And best of luck with your show.
Thank you so
much. Laura.
It's always fun to start a new podcast, but it's so much work. And people have no idea how much work it is until they do it themselves. So well done. And best of luck.
Thank you. We hope to see you at Star Wars Celebration in the future.
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
All right, good. We'll see you there then.
Dank Farrik.